Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everyone, my name is Debbie from NDIS Property Australia, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. This is our regular SDA Unlocked episode where we delve into the supply and demand data for specialist disability accommodation in different areas around Australia. This episode, I'm going to be going back to a regular area of ours in Melbourne, a new area that I haven't covered before in our SDA Unlocked, but there's so much still going on in Melbourne at the moment. Recently did a data report for the area of Preston. It was just a really interesting area to analyse in terms of the supply and demand. We know that there are so many parts of Melbourne now are massively oversupplied, particularly in the west, parts of the southeast and the north, or the northwest. This is Melbourne North East. That's the SA4 region that Preston falls into. So just to give you an overview of the suburbs and the areas that we're talking about, the Melbourne North East SA4, Statistical Area 4, covers three statistical area 3s, SA3s, and they are Banyule, which is in the southeast, Darebin-North, which is in the southwest, and then the much larger geographic areas of Nillumbut, Kinglake in the northeast and Whittlesea-Wallen in the northwest. The reason I'm pointing these out is because a large area is relatively low in population centre, and other areas are also have seen a lot of development, new build and pipeline development. And also the Melbourne North East has the largest undersupply of SDA in Melbourne, apart from the Melbourne Outer East. The Melbourne Outer East stretches from Rowville and Ferntree Gully up to Watunya, Boronia, Croydon, Warrandyte, and then further east all the way out to Warburton, Healesville and Yarra Glen, and those are far more sparsely populated areas. So that is the most undersupplied area in Melbourne. But if we are looking at the Melbourne North East area, the two interesting areas are the Banyule and the Darebin-North SA3s. Banyule incorporates suburbs such as Ivanhoe, Heidelberg and Rosanna up to Greensborough and Watsonia. And Darebin-North comprises the suburbs of Preston, Reservoir and Kingsbury. As I mentioned, there are two other SA3s in the area, the Nullumbik Kinglake, which stretches from Eltham and Diamond Creek all the way up to Toolangi and Kinglake in the northeast. And the other SA3 that is of interest is Whittlesea-Wallen, which incorporates the suburbs in the southern portion of Thomastown, Epping and South Morang, and also the new estate areas of Whittlesea-Wallen and also Beveridge, Donnybrook and Wallet. The reason I'm noting these areas is because we know a large percentage of new development has happened in these outlying areas. So when we look at the data, the SA4 information based on the new build and pipeline development is skewed because there's a lot of it has happened in that northern areas, whereas in those southern portions of Kingbry, Preston, Reservoir, there's really not been a lot. So that's the overview of the region. But just to get down into a little bit of nitty-gritty, I'm going to just focus on the SA3 now. We have a current number of participants with SDA funding or who qualify for SDA at 180 in that SA3. 141 of them are currently in an SDA dwelling and 39 of them are seeking. Now, we also have a number of the number of enrolled places in the SA3 being 209, and that's over 70 enrolled dwellings. That looks like we've got quite an oversupply in the area. It's actually an oversupply of 29 places. So that is literally bedrooms in dwellings. That doesn't sound great when you look at it that way. However, what is really stand out in this area is that the majority of places in the SA3 are in existing and legacy homes. So that is properties with 4, 5 or 6 residents, 6 or more residents. In fact, we've got 8 places that are 4 resident group homes. There are 110 places in 5 resident group homes, and there are 2 legacy properties which would have a minimum of 6 places. 12 places, 6 in each. So that is the 62% of places in the area are designed for 4 or more residents. Now, we know that residents don't like these group homes. They don't like living in those environments. We know that generally service providers also prefer housing for a lesser number of residents. We also know legacy homes are going to be defunded soon. And we know that as a huge number of group homes, the existing basic style group homes in Melbourne that are also going to reach the end of their period of lease with the Victorian government as at the end of 2025. So we've literally got about another 13 months before those people living in those group homes need to move out. So if we've got 62% of places in those group homes, we can basically discount them. And when we look at that information, that's a huge undersupply. Now, I'm going to actually stretch it out to the greater SA4 area now. And I'm going to look at the enrolled new build places. So I'm excluding all of the legacy and the existing places. So anything that is pre-2016 that doesn't fall into the new build category. And I'm also going to look at the number of pipeline places. So overall, we have 234 places in new build, and we have 352 places in the pipeline. And this is for the greater Melbourne North East SA4. That's a total of 586 places. But if we look at the demand, we've currently got 753 participants in that SA4 region with SDA funding. Projections for the increase in the number of participants with SDA funding are quite significant too. We're looking at a 14% increase to 2027. So that's only really 2.5 years away now. That's going to be 857 participants potentially with SDA funding. And if we stretch it ahead to 2032, we're looking at a 22% increase. So we're looking at a projected demand of 922 participants with SDA funding. And what we've got in the pipeline and the current new build is only 586 places. So we are looking at a significant undersupply in that area. And this really is important when we are looking at the fact that we know those group homes are going to come to the end of their lease by the end of 2025. So we need a lot of properties built in the SA4 before then or by then. And we also know the participants are not living out in those northern stretches of Whittlesea Wallen and Nillumbut Kinglake. They are going to be in the southern areas, the southern SA3s of Banyule and Darebin-North. So basically anywhere in those areas that is a good location situated along, the train lines and within proximity to shopping facilities, other transport, medical centres, you're going to be in an area with a very high future demand. And it's something that people should consider. And look, it's really hard to get suitable land in these areas now. But if you do own a property in the area and you're looking at redeveloping it, looking at maybe doing a knockdown rebuild, definitely worth considering looking at whether that site is feasible and suitable for an SDA, because it's going to be well and truly in high demand in the coming year or two. So that wraps up supply and demand data for the Preston area of Darebin-North in Melbourne North East. If you have any questions at all about this, please let us know. You can reach out to us at info@sda ndis.property, or you can call us on 1300 254 397. And remember, if you do have any other areas of interest that you'd like us to analyse in a future SDA Unlocked episode, please let us know on podcast@ndis.property. Look forward to speaking to you about another area around Australia next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.